Your Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, Blackhawks fans? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcasting network, where we're proud to bring you your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. On today's episode, I'll open up with Sam Rinzel returning to the NHL while Artyom Levshunov gets a little bit of a reset. Then I'll also break down the Blackhawks losing a fifth consecutive game to close out January as they lost 4-2 to the Columbus Blue Jackets last night. And then in segment 3, I'll also discuss whether the team can truly afford to trade Connor Murphy at the moment. But before I get into all of that, just a quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube today, please go smash that like button for me. Subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube as well, and drop any questions that you may have for me down below in the comment section. If you're tuning in through an audio platform, rating and reviewing as well is also a big help to the show, and it's all 100% free and won't cost you anything. Greatly appreciate all of your support, Blackhawks fans. All right, happy Saturday, everyone. Before I break down what went wrong for the Blackhawks last night in their 4-2 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I wanted to open things up here today with a breakdown of what transpired prior to the puck dropping at the United Center. Sam Rinzel, who of course opened up his rookie year up in the NHL with the Blackhawks before getting sent down back on December 8th. Well, he's officially returned. The Blackhawks recalled Rinzel from the Rockford IceHogs yesterday, and that now gives the Hawks 7 defensemen on their active roster once again. And as I talked about yesterday, with Artyom Levshunov's struggles really reaching kind of a boiling point, the Blackhawks absolutely had to do something to address their blue line. And I mentioned on yesterday's show that I would prefer for them to recall someone from Rockford and give the team 7 defensemen on the active roster once again over sending Artie down to the AHL. Now, I honestly didn't think they were ready to recall Sam Rinzel from Rockford, even though he had been down in the minor leagues for the past month and a half, quite honestly. While he would make the most sense to recall as another right-handed defenseman, and as I outlined yesterday, not a whole lot of other options for the Blackhawks there. I figured, honestly, I thought they were going to leave Rinzel down in the AHL until after the Olympic break. I thought if they were going to recall someone from Rockford, and as I said, that's the route I wanted to see them go, I thought maybe they'd call up Ethan Del Mastro and potentially have someone like Wyatt Kaiser, who has experienced has played the offside a couple of times throughout his young career thus far. I thought that was going to be the option that the Blackhawks were going to go with, but I guess they felt comfortable enough with the growth shown by Rinzel in the minor leagues since December 8th when he was sent down to Rockford to call him back up just a month and a half later. And like I said, I prefer doing that over sending Artie down to the AHL because I think you don't want to tinker or mess with his confidence potentially, which already isn't probably in a very good place considering the way the things have been trending so far here in January. And I think before going that route, you'd like to see how he looks in sheltered minutes once again, because like I broke down yesterday, Levshunov is being asked to do a lot as a 20-year-old rookie, a player who just turned 20 back in October, right? Playing a true top 4 role as the Blackhawks have been going with 6 defensemen only in the lineup for really their last 25 to 30 games now. And a lot of the time, Levshunov has been either leading the team in ice time or receiving the second most behind only Alex Vlasic. He's been averaging up over 20 minutes per game, handling, top power play, quarterbacking responsibilities. He's being asked to do a whole lot as a rookie. So I think before sending him back down to the AHL, where admittedly that was a level he didn't look all that great at last year. He honestly probably played better during the final stretch of the season up in the NHL with the Blackhawks than he did in the minor league. So knowing that and knowing where his confidence could be right now as a young player, and obviously kind of toying with some guys up and down between the NHL and Rockford, I think that could cause some confusion between where the player should be at. And I think it leaves the player a little bit confused about what their expectations are as well. And we've kind of seen that happen to Kevin Korchinski. Obviously saw that transpire with Lucas Reichel before he ultimately got traded earlier on this season. So I think it is smart for the Blackhawks to go back to giving Levshunov, first off, giving him a little bit of a reset here is he did not play last night against the Blue Jackets. Sam Rinzel did draw back into the lineup. We'll see if Artie winds up playing in either of these final two games, Monday against San Jose and then Wednesday against Columbus once again. Just that one will be held at Nationwide Arena. We'll see if Artie draws in for either of those two games, but quite honestly, I wouldn't hate giving him just a full reset going into the Olympic break, right? Considering just how everything has been going recently, and then it all kind of marinated into that -5 showing in the front end of the back-to-back on Thursday against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I want to see how Artie will look in sheltered minutes, playing more so in offensive situations like he did earlier on in the season. He was having a lot of success there. So I'd like to see the Blackhawks try to get back to that. So that's why I would prefer calling someone up from Rockford as opposed to just sending Artie down, and it winds up being Sam Rinzel. And for Levshunov, by the way, Blashill, prior to yesterday's game, did mention there are three things in particular that they want to focus on Levshunov improving here down the stretch of the season. First off, it's his puck play, and I think both in the defensive zone with his breakout passes and also at times in the offensive zone when he's reading plays, the puck movement and the decision making with the puck on his stick ultimately hasn't been good enough. Two, they want to work on his defensive fundamentals, which I kind of think goes without saying. Blashill mentioned his footwork and his body positioning. I think altogether they just got to work on his structure because that really went wayward in the last month or so. And when Artie is playing his worst hockey, it's when he's unstructured, and some of those real just horrendous breakdowns that he has comes from him being so far out of position and not really sure what he's trying to accomplish. So having some of those brain farts, limiting those, obviously they're going to happen as a rookie, right? But you want to limit the amount of times that happens, and it's just been popping up too frequently for Artie recently. So I think there's a lot he needs to work on with his defensive fundamentals, his positioning, just being more clean altogether on the ice. And then last but certainly not least, as I've talked about on the show, they want to work on his shooting technique because offensively, while he hasn't been getting as many as of late, he does a really good job of generating chances for himself. He just hasn't been able to get the finished product this year. And his shot, I think, still has room for improvement in order for him to capitalize on some of those opportunities that he's able to create. So a lot of things that, Levshunov needs to work on. Admittedly, looking at all of those things, obviously there are a lot of key fundamentals and key aspects to hockey. Probably not great that a player who was selected so highly still needs to fix all of those parts of his game. And that's kind of, again, what I mentioned yesterday has been the biggest concern to me about Levshunov is I understand why he's still a raw player, but how raw he is in some of those moments where he just doesn't look like a professional hockey player at times, that's what concerns me the most. So a lot that Artie needs to clean up. We'll see if he can make some adjustments and finish this rookie season strong whenever he does return to the lineup, whether that be these final two games before the Olympics or when the NHLers return from Milan. And then for Sam Rinzel, I'm excited to see what kind of growth he's shown after his time down in the AHL, because remember, kind of what Artyom Levshunov is going through right now. I don't think it was that poor defensively for Sam Rinzel like it's been for Artie as of late, but there were a lot of similar things going on for Rinzel earlier on in the season to what's happening with Levshunov, where Rinzel's offensive production, which was supposed to be the best part of his game, and we obviously saw him make an impact offensively during his first stint at the end of the 24-25 season. Well, his offensive production had fallen off. He wasn't getting the job done on the power play, hence Levshunov replacing him. And then also his defense wasn't strong enough to be sustainable, to make it worth playing him on a nightly basis. And that's why it was best at that point in time for them to give him his first stint down in the minor leagues. But last night, I thought it was a good first game back for Rinzel, especially on kind of short notice of him being recalled on the back end of a back-to-back. Probably a quick turnaround for him. Didn't get a practice with Wyatt Kaiser, who he skated with, as he just jumped into Levshunov's spot in the lineup. Although, Rinzel has definitely gotten some time in training camp and probably has gotten to know Kaiser decently well, but still no time to really get familiar, or at least remind himself of his tendencies and whatnot. But I thought Rinzel played a real simple, straightforward game last night. He used his skating when he needed to break out of the defensive zone. I thought his positioning was really sound, and Did a good job breaking up a couple of rushes for the Blue Jackets. I thought his passing, for the most part, he had one bad turnover earlier on in the game, but altogether, he made the right plays with the puck. I just thought he played a simple, straightforward style, and that's kind of what he just needs to do. He needs to be more consistent, and he kind of mentioned that when talking with the media after the game. One thing he kind of realized when being down in Rockford is that this is what he said, 90% of the shifts are just kind of 50-50 battles out there, and finding ways to be on the right side of those 50-50 battles more times than not. That's kind of what makes the difference. And I thought he was on the right side of those 50-50 battles last night. Did a good job of either passing the puck out of harm's way or carrying it himself. From the defensive zone, transitioning into offense. I thought he made some nice clean passes, breaking out of the defensive zone as well, and then was in the right spots and didn't skate himself out of position. His positioning was really sound last night, and he actually ended up leading the Blackhawks with over 22 minutes of time on ice. So I thought it was a really sound return from Sam Rinzel, and hopefully that will give him some confidence to finish the pre-Olympic break, which he's going to be up in the NHL with the Blackhawks for at least the remainder of this stretch. Hopefully that will give him some confidence to finish his rookie year on a higher note than it started. But Sammy Rinzel is back. Looks like it's going to be a little bit of a reset for Artyom Levshunov, which he greatly needed. But there are my thoughts on what transpired before the Blackhawks took on the Columbus Blue Jackets last night. Coming up in just a moment, I'll break down the takeaways from that game and the Blackhawks losing a fifth game in a row to close out January. But first, got to talk to you all about today's sponsor, which is FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, and the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap just feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff up until the final whistle. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 worth of bonus bets if you win. And make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. This is the last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Go and visit FanDuel.com right now in order to get started. Segment two, before I get into segment two, as always, just a reminder to please go and show some support to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram. If you haven't done so already, I post reels of every Blackhawks goal that they score. I also provide updates on all of their top prospects and a lot of good stuff in between. So please make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram if you could. Segment two, the losing skid continued last night against Columbus, as did the struggles at home, as the Blackhawks are now 1-6-1 in their last 8 home games. They've dropped 7 of them. And Charlie Coyle was really the difference for the Blue Jackets as he factored in on all 4 of their goals and gets the hat trick by scoring the empty netter in the 4-2 win. Not the back-to-back that the Blackhawks were looking for, and not the way that they wanted to close out January and go into the Olympic break that's upcoming, as they lose their final 5 games of the month after starting 2026 with 4 consecutive wins and a 5-0-1 record. And I talked a couple of days ago about how the back-to-backs have been much better for the Blackhawks lately. That wasn't the case on Thursday and Friday, and I outlined a big reason why those back-to-backs have been better is because the Blackhawks have started them better. And a lot of those back-to-backs, the front end, has been on the road. So they've done a good job of starting strong and getting a key road win. They obviously had that meltdown in the second period on Thursday against Pittsburgh that led to that lopsided loss, and then never really had their best stuff throughout the game last night against the Jackets. They weren't ever really sharp. They did have a nice 8 to 9 minute-ish push towards the end of the second period. They also had a really good final minute on their second and last power play opportunity of the game with just under 6 minutes to play in the third period. But outside of that, nothing to really write home about. But like I said a moment ago, that third line of Charlie Coyle, Cole Sillinger, and Mathieu Olivier was absolutely dominant. They led 16-2 in shot attempts at even strength, as well as 9-1 in shots on goal, and 9-0 in scoring chances. Both of the goals that Columbus scored at even strength was scored by that line. And Charlie Coyle was a huge impact player, and I'm actually going to blame Brooke Laforno for the hockey writers because she talked with Charlie Coyle before the start of the game, and then he went on to go and dominate the Blackhawks. But he also opened the scoring on the power play to give the Jackets a 1-0 lead, just the third goal that the Blackhawks have surrendered in the new year on the penalty kill. And then Coyle, how did he score the second goal? Why am I forgetting? Oh, well, he had the Mathieu Olivier. That's why I forgot it, because I scrubbed it out of my memory. Andre Burakovsky with a brutal giveaway as his struggles continued. With the primary assist, basically setting up Charlie Coyle right out of the slot. Horrendous feed in the defensive zone. Led Matt Grzelcyk way too much and threw it right onto Charlie Coyle's tape, and he ripped a shot past Spencer Knight. And then Coyle with some good work down low set up Mathieu Olivier just a couple of moments later to add to the Blue Jackets lead, making it 3-1. And then, like I said, he capped off the hat trick with the empty netter. So that line really was the difference in the game. The Blackhawks didn't have any answers for them. And special teams also wound up making a difference in this close contest. I mentioned the power play goal that the Blackhawks surrendered. They had scored the opening goal in 7 of their last 8, but didn't let that happen again on home ice. Coyle followed up on a redirect off of a feed from Zach Werenski, makes the Blackhawks power play, I believe, 32 for 35 now here in 2026. But the power play struggles is really what did them in. They only had 2 opportunities, but were unable to convert on either, weren't able to tie up the game late with that man advantage chance that they got after Kent Johnson took a penalty late in the third period. Connor Bedard, right after Johnson stepped out of the box, had a golden opportunity to tie the score 3-3. Looked like he might not have recognized how much time he truly had to go and put that puck into kind of a yawning cage. Elvis Merzlikins was down and out. Unfortunately, Bedard rushed it a little bit and fired high of the net, airmailed the shot, and then kind of looked up into the rafters and slammed his head down on the bench in disbelief. Blackhawks weren't able to get much of a push once they got Spencer Knight off for the extra attacker, which didn't happen until there was like a minute and 22 left in the game. And then Charlie Coyle's empty netter didn't come too far long after that. So outside of a sharp first game back from Sam Rinzel, not a whole lot of promising takeaways. Things just continuing to go poorly for this Hawks team that really needs this Olympic break, as I think they're now 2-6-2 in their last 10 overall here in January, and obviously have lost 5 in a row. On the bright side, was nice to see Connor Bedard active once again and scoring for a second consecutive game. He now has points in 3 in a row, had a goal and an assist last night. Frankie Nazar also scored his first goal since returning from injury. Nifty little passing play all around. Bedard ended up finding Nazar, who was trailing the play a little bit in the slot, and then nifty little finish from Frankie, who's kind of had a hard time getting the finished product, even dating back to him. Prior to him getting the injury was a tough stretch for him getting goals, getting the shot past the opposing goaltender. So nice to see Bedard and Nazar clicking once again. It's pretty clear that connection works. And I also really like Tyler Bertuzzi jumping up on the top line last night, swapping spots in the top 6 with Teuvo Teravainen. I've been preaching on the show that, listen, you're a team that's not scoring a lot of goals right now. I understand Jeff Blashill, why he's been putting Bertuzzi with Dickinson and Mikheyev, because that's one of the only line combinations that's worked for the Blackhawks over the last 2 to 3 weeks. However, you got to stop having your leading goal scorer, who's right on the precipice of maybe hitting 40 for the first time as an NHLer. Doesn't look all that likely now, considering how he's kind of quieted down here. But I think you got to be giving him more of an opportunity. And the lack of Bertuzzi and Bedard playing with one another at 5-on-5 this year has really frustrated me once again. And I don't think it was a surprise that was the best line for the Blackhawks last night. Bertuzzi also winds up with two points as he picked up assists on both of their goals. Bedard with a nice rebound tally for his 22nd goal of the year late in the first period, gave the Blackhawks some momentum, but weren't able to build off of that in the early stages of the second when Columbus scored those 2 quick goals, one from Coyle, one from Olivier, that really put them in control. First line did their job last night. The rest of the lineup really didn't do enough and wasn't able to impact the game all that much. There are my thoughts from the Blackhawks. 5th straight loss. The Olympic break honestly can't come soon enough. Coming up in just a moment, I want to discuss whether the Blackhawks can actually afford to trade a right-handed defenseman in Connor Murphy right now. Just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen, here to start off your day. Segment 3, before I close things out, once the NHLers return from Milan, which will be, of course, in late February, the 2026 trade deadline will then be right around the corner. And the expectation is that Connor Murphy, who's on an expiring contract, the expectation is for him to end up getting dealt, and for his time with the Blackhawks, the longest tenured member of the team, who just played in his 800th game last night, by the way. Congratulations to Murph. It was also Teuvo Teravainen's 800th NHL game and Ilya Mikheyev's 400th. So milestones galore for the Blackhawks last night at the UC. But Murphy has been around since the 2017-2018 campaign, and it looks like his time with the Blackhawks is coming to an end. However, with the struggles of Artyom Levshunov and now having Rinzel back up in the NHL, yes, that does give the Blackhawks 3 other options at the right-handed defenseman spot, but getting rid of Murphy would obviously make the right side of the blue line a lot younger and more inexperienced, and would leave the team with Louis Crevier, Artyom Levshunov, and Sam Rinzel. And outside of those 3, like I talked about yesterday, there aren't really right-handed defensemen to bring up in the system at this point in time. And while it would be a great opportunity for those 3 right-handed defensemen that could be the future of the Blackhawks blue line on the right-hand side, it would be a great opportunity for all those young kids. And that's, really what the home stretch of the season is going to be about, right? And while it could result in some more losses, being a younger defensive group than we already are, that obviously wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either, because that could give the Blackhawks a better selection in the 2026 NHL draft. But I talk a lot on the show about Kyle Davidson and Jeff Blashill referencing the thrive, not survive mentality around this team. And I mentioned yesterday, it doesn't look like Levshunov is ready to thrive in a true top 4 role right now. And while Sam Rinzel looked good in his first game back, who knows how he's going to look in a more significant stretch and in a larger sample size. So while I don't mean to be negative, it just, trading Connor Murphy could put the Blackhawks and put 2 young defensemen, 2 guys who are 21 years old or younger without a lot of NHL experience, both rookies. It could put them in a very vulnerable position for the final, 20, 25 games of the season, whatever it may be. And also, one thing to consider is the Blackhawks, while yes, business-wise, you want to take on as many assets as you can that'll benefit you down the road, it's not like the Blackhawks truly need the asset that they would get in return for Connor Murphy, which sounds like it would be probably a 2nd or 3rd round pick, depending on if they are going to retain his salary or how much needs to be retained. There's a lot that goes into it. And that's another thing that's worth bringing up as well, is the Blackhawks, because Seth Jones is still on their books, they only have 2 retained salary spots right now. And should they trade Jason Dickinson, which that's fully the expectation, I think he's the most likely Blackhawk to get dealt at this point. They might have to retain salary on him and his $4.25 million cap hit. And then Nick Foligno, if he wants to go and chase a Stanley Cup, he's got a $4.5 million cap hit. So the Blackhawks might have to retain on him. And they have to, like Connor Murphy, he's got a $4.4 million cap hit. They'd have to retain on him. So you get what I'm saying, Blackhawks fans? The Blackhawks don't truly need the asset in return for Connor Murphy. And while it would probably make more sense to give the youngsters the opportunity, considering what we know now about Levshunov and considering how poorly things have gone for really the last month at this point, I don't know if the Blackhawks are ready to go with that young of a right side to their blue line. It's really interesting to think about. So I just wonder, with the recent developments of Levshunov, if that's impacted what the Blackhawks are going to do with Connor Murphy here at the deadline, because even if they do keep him for the remainder of the season and he ends up walking in free agency, yes, it's a missed out asset that Kyle Davidson could have retrieved. But again, it's like not the end of the world for the Blackhawks, and there could be more benefit to keeping a veteran right-handed structured defenseman like Murphy around to help benefit Artyom Levshunov and Sam Rinzel down the stretch of the season. Now, I'm sure Murphy, since, we're at the 55 game point of the year, he's probably already given a lot of pointers to those 2 guys. I don't know how much more he truly has to add in the final 25, 30 games of the season, but it is still something to think about. The Blackhawks aren't like backed in a corner that they absolutely have to trade Connor Murphy. And I just feel like keeping 7 defensemen on the NHL roster, which you could still do if you trade Matt Grzelcyk and call up someone like Kevin Korchinski or call up Ethan Del Mastro, I just feel like the benefits of keeping Connor Murphy might outweigh the benefits of trading him. Let me know in the comment section if you feel the same way. And listen, if Artyom Levshunov was absolutely thriving, I don't think this would be a question. And I am still saying I think it's more likely than not that Connor Murphy gets dealt. I just wonder if this has at all gone through Kyle Davidson's mind as the trade deadline is going to come up real quickly after the Blackhawks and the rest of the league returns from the Olympics. All right, that is going to close out today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes as soon as they become available. If you want to check me out on X or any social media account, you can find me at Jack Bushman 2. My Strictly Blackhawks account, that can be found at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. It's actually not freezing cold outside. It's supposed to get up to like 27 today, which feels like 47 with the way things have been going recently. Everyone enjoy this little bit of a warm earth stretch. Enjoy the rest of your weekends. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.